Okay, Shalom Chevra. We are starting a series, a class called 6 Questions That They Ask You in Heaven. And the reason we're doing that is that we want to make sure we have a good answer when they ask us those questions. In order to actually get the answers, we're going to have to, hold your horses. It's going to take us a couple days. It's probably going to take us a 3-part. We'll do this week. And these are real stuff. This is the Gemara talks about questions that they're going to talk to us about in heaven. And we're going to build up how to understand the questions and how to provide good answers. Because this is real. And when you know what they're going to ask you in heaven, because it's been revealed to us in the oral tradition, in the Torah, it makes sense to take those seriously and make sure that you, get the job done to provide a good report. If the boss says to you, at the end of the year, there's going to be a progress report, and I'm going to ask you this, that, and the other. And he tells you what he's going to ask you. So you do your thing that year, and then you show up on the last day, and he asks, and you're like, what are you going to talk about? I told you what I'm going to talk about. You're like, but this, that, and the other happened. And I literally told you what I was going to expect of you and ask of you. You're going to give me all sorts of answers how to get out of it. I told you what it's going to be. So once we've been told, and especially now that I'm going to tell you, it's going to be, I'm sort of like, now I'm telling you, it's going to be, there's not going to be any excuses. We're going to have the right answers. The way that we're going to prepare for this is by first looking at a verse from the prophets, from Isaiah, from Yeshayahu, paragraph 33, verse 6, Lamed Gimel Vav. And the paragraph, the verse itself, is a verse here that I wrote on the board in Hebrew. And the verse reads as following. The background of the verse is it's a prophecy of Isaiah of the Sennacherib, the king who was coming with the Assyrian army to destroy Israel and to kill many people. And the prophecy is referring to the overthrowing and the fall of Sennacherib and his ultimate destruction. But hidden inside this verse is how we're going to pull this off, how the destruction and how the downfall of Sennacherib will happen. So I'm going to read the verse. V'haya Emunah sitecha. And then we'll translate it also. I'm going to read it here from the Tanakh. Yeshayahu 33:6. V'haya Emunah sitecha. Chaysin Yeshua is chachmas vodas. Yiras Hashem hi oitzarai. Okay, what does that mean? So Rashi explains it the following: V'haya, and it will be Emunah. What's Emunah? So I don't really like the word faith by Emunah, but let's call it belief. Let's call it your firm, clear belief. When you have belief in itecha, what's itecha? 8. Itecha is the different times of the year. So what is it referring to? When you have faith, when you have emunah, when you have firm, clear belief in the different times. Says Rashi, these times are referring to the Shmitah cycle. What's the Shmitah cycle? Every 7 years. What do? We let the land lay fallow. We don't plant anything. They have kollels for farmers here. Because what do the farmers do for a whole year? They go steig and go learn Bab Mitzvah. They come to yeshiva for a year. They have they're not working their field. Like minimal working, certain basic laws. By the way, anybody know what next year is? Shmitah, Chevra.
Is it word for hydroponics? It's not in the ground?
That's a technical question. It's not so simple. Not so simple. If you have emunah, now, does it take a lot of emunah to let your land lay fallow for an entire year? That takes a lot of emunah. If you have Emunah, says Rashi, in Itecha, the different times, which includes also Yovel, every 7 cycles of Shmitah, there is a Jubilee year in the 50th year where you let the land lie fallow 2 years. You have the 7th cycle of 7, so that's the 7th year, that's Shmitah. Then the next year is the Jubilee. So 2 whole years, you're not even doing anything. What are you going to eat? Well, God says, I promise there'll be a bumper crop. Well, that's nice, but I'm used to thinking when I plant something, there's going to be food. I'm a little bit uncomfortable not planting anything. But if you have Emunah in that system of Itecha, and this also includes Itecha means the times that you have to take off the tithes, that you don't keep all the food to yourself, that includes monetary tithes, you give Meiser, you give Truma, you take off what needs to be taken off in its appropriate time. Then Chosin, there will be strength. What's the Yeshuas? And salvations. And you will have Chachma Vodas. And you will have wisdom. And you will have Das, knowledge, connection. V'yiras Hashem hi oitzarai. And the fear of Hashem is your true treasure. So, according to the simple meaning in Rashi, it means that if a person, what's going to give you the victory when you have a real Emunah and you live with God in those times? Live with God meaning that you are somebody that Itecha, that when you're supposed to let your land lie fallow, you believe that Hashem is going to take care of you. Shabbos goes into this also. Ain't gonna work on Saturday. What's that?
It's like an example. That's like just like a good example. It's like at every moment of your life, you should like remember God.
Yes, that is true. Every moment of your life, it's a deeper drush. When Rashi points it out, he's mentioning the specific times that are, let's say, biblically mentioned, that you really need to have a belief because you're doing something that would seem to go against basic hishtadlus. Basic, how do you translate hishtadlus? Basic.
Work you do to get something.
That's right. The basic efforts that you should put into making a livelihood. And if you ask a person, if you ask a statistician, if I work 6 days out of the week, will I make the same amount as I work 7 days out of the week? They'll say no, because you're working 1 less day. So what do we answer them? Well, we believe in God, and He says don't work 7 days. So your statistics don't work. Okay? That's Rashi. Okay? What we just explained. The Radak explains this verse. We're starting with the simple meaning of this verse, a verse from Isaiah. The Radak says the following. Emunah means when something is fulfilled, when something is strong, when you believe and you fulfill your time wisely, when you use your time wisely, this will be the chosin. This will be this will cause the powerful salvation. Okay? And this will only happen using your chachma, your wisdom, and your das. This will only happen if you're somebody who uses your chachma and your das. And your yiras Hashem, and being a person who fears Hashem, as this will be your greatest, this will be your only true treasure, that will allow you to use, to have emunah, to fulfill, to be makayim your times wisely, and that will lead to the true salvation, which will only happen while having chachma and das and having a fear and awe of Hashem. Okay? And by doing this, it will cause the salvation over Sancheriv, and there will be a continuation of the Jewish people. Okay? That's the simple meaning of this verse of the prophet. It's a prophecy from Isaiah. Let's go one step deeper. Okay? The Gemara in Shabbos, and we're going to focus the next 2 days in this Gemara in Shabbos, and this is going to lead into the 6 questions we're going to be asked in heaven. You might already start to piece together the amount of words in this verse, the amount of main concepts in this verse. There's a deeper meaning of these 6 words, that they're actually referring to the 6 parts of the oral law, the 6 parts of the Talmud. How many sections of the Talmud are there? Well, I just said it about 5 or 6 times. 6. Okay, excellent. Thank you, Don. There are 6 parts. Anyone know what the 6 sections of the Talmud are? There's Zerayim. Zerayim. What does Zerayim mean? Zerayim means seeds. That's all the laws concerning planting, Shmitah, taking care of the land, Orla, Truma, Meiser, tithing the land. All of the law. It happens to be brachas, making brachas. That's the first of the sections. All the laws concerning the land and planting and seeds, not mixing seeds together, not maybe genetically modified, not grafting, all sorts of very interesting questions. Kilayim is Zroyim. Next is Moed. What's Moed mean? The holidays. Moed is talking about Shabbos. Moed is talking about Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Pesach, Erevin. Moed. We love Moed. Moed Cotton. Moed is the holidays. The next is Nashim. Nashim mean women, which is the section of the Gemara that is concerned with everything to do with women. There's not a section called men. For women, about getting married, about the laws of marriage, it's very beautiful, and it focuses on the greatness of women.
The rest of them are about men, so I don't even know about men.
No, they're all about...
It's planting for men, alone for men.
No.
Isn't it mostly focused on what men are doing?
No, everyone has to do it. It's all the mitzvahs. We're talking that men and women have to do everything.
More specific. Like
It's for everybody. It's for everybody. For the 613. We have Nezikin. What's Nezikin?
Damages.
Damages, which is a whole section on you built something and there was a leak, and who's got to pay for it. We mentioned this. Nezikin is all about reincarnations. You somebody took you to court. A person stole something. A person was not honest in a business deal. There's any damaging thing. Now, by the way, what tractate is actually part of Nezikin, which is interesting? Pirkei Avos, which is all about your character traits. Why is that? Yeah, because if you don't act properly, if you don't have good character, you're not a mensch. You're not an upright human being. You're going to cause a lot of damage to people. What do you mean? I'm a very irritable guy. Did I hurt you or anything? You know, there was a famous line from the Altar of Kelm that Rabbi Yisrael Salanter, I think, said it also, that a person who has a grumpy face, he walks around like this, just like always like grumpy looking. So he said, it's like a bor b'reshus harabim. That's like a really yeshivish joke to say something. I would have born the Reshus Harabim. Everyone's like, what did the rabbi just say? What's that mean?
Public property.
It means your face is public property. You don't see your own face. It's a funny thing. Hashem made it that you don't see your own face, but everyone else sees your own face. Your face is public property, right? So if I come into public property and I dig a pit, which a pit is a very damaging thing, like a manhole. If you don't cover a manhole in public property, who's liable? The guy who opened up the manhole, the guy who dug the pit, because you just put a dangerous thing in public property. You got to cover it up. That's your responsibility. So if I walk around with a really grumpy face, I'm like a damager. I'm walking around damaging anyone who looks at me because they're like, what an ugly, why you got such what a grumpy face. Like, you just put me in a bad mood. But when you have a smile and you smile to people, you're lifting people up. You're like a guy in the public property, like handing out lemonade. Hey, you want some lemonade? Thank you. It's a really hot day. I really appreciate that. That's like a guy with a smile. A guy who's like grumpy. So you're damaging. Just that you're grumpy, you need to damage other people. So the laws of character development is found in the Zikin, in damages. Then you have Kachim, which is all the laws concerning the Beis HaMikdash and the operation of the Beis HaMikdash. And then you have Taharis. What's Taharis mean? Purity. All the laws of purity. Says the Gemara, Shabbos Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph on the bottom. These 6 orders correspond to the 6 concepts in this verse. Zurayim, seed, corresponds to Emunah. Emunah means belief. We're going to go into these more tomorrow, because when I have belief, why would I ever put a seed into the ground if I didn't believe that it was going to grow? You know, you can have the best fertilizer, you can have the best stuff, but if you don't believe that the Lord Almighty is going to make it rain, then nothing's going to happen. There's a lot of belief, there's a lot of prayer that's needed. And by the way, when a seed goes into the ground, it rots. It basically dies. And at the last second, as it's rotting, life emerges. There's a lot to be said about that. We'll talk about it more on Tu B'Shvat. Moed, the different times of the year correspond to times. Itecha. So I have Emunah. So it's called Zrayim is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So Zrayim, that's Emunah, that's 1. Itecha, that's 2. Chosin, it means strength, but it also means your heirs, your offspring. So where does offspring come from? From the Nashim, from women. Chosin. When anybody says that no offspring comes from, like birth comes from the man, it's just not true, my friends. It's just not true. No, we're being very rational and logical. It's just not true. Women give birth to babies and men don't. Even though there is such a thing, if a guy has a dream giving birth, so some of the psychologists say it's a good sign because it shows that he wants to be so empathetic towards his wife. That I wish I could go through what you're going through, but I can't. So he has a dream of himself being pregnant. But at the end of the day, a man doesn't give birth. And it's okay to say that a woman gives birth. That's not racist. It's okay to say that, my friends. It's okay. Even though they might tell you in some place that if you determine the gender of the child when it's born, that's a microaggression. No, it's a microaggression to confuse your child and tell her that she's not a girl. That maybe she's a boy, maybe she's a dolphin, who knows? That's an aggression. That's mixing up a child, a young girl. It's very important that we just keep our minds clear and straight. Okay, my friends? Very, very important. A woman is the one that gives birth. That's chaysim. Nezikim, damages, that's Yeshua. We're going to have to explain that more. Yeshua. There's a salvation that comes when you can prevent damages. Kodshim, the laws of the Beis HaMikdash, that's Chachma. That's going to need a little bit more development. Chachma. That's Chachma. And Taharis, purity, is Das. Das. There's a connection. This verse was hinting to the 6 parts of the Gemara. And we're going to see this verse is going to be hinting to the 6 questions we're going to be asked in heaven. We're going to develop this more tomorrow. We should be Zoicha, my dear friends, to really fulfill the Emunah of Itecha, to have Chachma and Das, and be the one who could not just push away Sancheiriv once upon a time in a far, far away place, but push away any of the evil that's in the world today using Emunah of Itecha, Chos and Yeshua, Chachma Vadas, and ultimately having an awe of Hashem. That's going to be our true treasure. We should do this. Amen. Amen. Have a wonderful day, Chevra.